Hey, Influence Decoders. Back again for another deep dive. And today, things are going to get kind of metaphysical.
Oh yeah, definitely heady stuff.
We're talking anchor beings and NPCs.
Two ideas that really make you think about like your place in the universe.
Right, exactly. Like, are we the stars of our own show or just background characters?
And what does that even mean?
So, before we totally freak out, let's start with the basics.
Okay, good plan.
What exactly is an anchor being?
So an anchor being is basically someone or something so important to their reality that without them, that whole world would just cease to be.
Well, hold on. So, like, they're holding everything together.
Yeah, kinda. Think about it like in the Creed movies.
Oh, yeah. Adonis,
The
right?
Adonis,
Say.
yeah, the Adonis Creed, he's like the anchor of that specific reality.
So, if he's gone, poof, that version of the world just disappears.
That's the idea. And when you add in the concept of the multiverse, things get even crazier. Like, what if each universe has its own anchor being?
Whoa, okay, tell you, this is going to get deep.
It is, but it's also kind of fascinating, right? It makes you wonder if our universe has an anchor being and what would happen if they were gone.
Okay, now I am freaking out.
I know, but let's switch gears for a second and talk about the flip side of that coin.
You mean the NPCs?
Yep. So for those who aren't familiar, it's a term from video games, stands for non-player character.
Those are the characters you don't really control, right? Like, they're just kind of there.
Exactly. They might give you quests or sell you stuff, but they're not driving the story.
So, applying that to us, you're saying if you're not the anchor being, you're an NPC.
That's the implication. And it can be a little unsettling, right? Like, are most of us just background noise in the grand scheme of things?
That's a cheery thought.
I know it's not exactly uplifting, but it's the question a lot of people are grappling with these days.
Especially with all the pressure to be an influencer or, build your personal brand and all that.
Totally. Everyone wants to be the main character. And if you're not constantly in the spotlight, it's easy to feel like you're fading into the background.
Sure. And that can be super isolating, can it?
Absolutely. This whole anchor being versus NTC idea can definitely feed into that sense of insignificance that a lot of people are already struggling with.
It's like social media taken to the extreme right, where people are reduced to numbers and algorithms instead of actual human beings.
You're right. There's definitely a dehumanizing element to it.
Dehumanizing.
How so? Well, when you start seeing people as just data points or potential followers, you lose sight of their individual stories, their experiences, their humanity.
It's kind of scary when you think about it that way.
Well,
Like, if we view others as just NPCs, do we lose our empathy for them?
that's a really important question, and it's something we need to be mindful of.
So, is there a way out of this whole anchor being NPC binary? The sources mentioned some alternatives, right?
Yeah, there are definitely some more hopeful perspectives. We don't have to get stuck in this either thinking.
Oh, so tell me about those. What are some of those ideas?
Well, one that I found really interesting is the concept of the ensemble anchor.
The ensemble anchor.
Yeah. So instead of just one person holding up the universe, it's more like a team effort, a group of people who collectively act as the linchpin of reality.
Oh, I like that. So, like a superhero team.
Exactly, like the Avengers. It's not about one single hero saving the day, but about a group of people working together, each with their own unique skills and strengths.
That makes it feel a lot less daunting, too, right? Like, it's not all on your shoulders.
Definitely. And, we see this kind of ensemble anchor dynamic in real life all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like families, communities, even social movements. It's that collective effort that creates lasting change.
Right. And it challenges the idea that only one person can be the hero. It suggests that we all have the potential to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
And to make a real difference in the world.
Exactly. Now, another idea that's connected to this is the idea that even NPCs can have depth.
Really? But I always thought of NPCs as being kind of one dimensional.
Traditionally, yeah, that was often the case. But modern storytelling is changing that.
How so?
Well, think about video games or TV shows these days. Even the background characters are getting more complex backstories, more agency.
So that shopkeeper you buy potions from might actually have a whole secret life.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even those who might seem like background characters have their own unique perspectives and stories.
Makes you think twice about those everyday interactions, right?
It does. It challenges us to be more mindful of the people around us, to see them as individuals with their own hopes and dreams and struggles.
To recognize that shared humanity we all have.
Right. And maybe by embracing that more nuanced and compassionate view, we can start to break down those harmful binaries that divide us.
I love that. So instead of focusing on who's the anchor being or who's the NPC, maybe we should be asking a different question.
Well, then what's that?
What are W anchoring? What are the values and principles that are important to us? How can we contribute to creating a world where everyone feels seen and valued?
That's a beautiful way to frame it. It shifts the focus from individual achievement to collective responsibility.
And maybe, just maybe, that's how we create a reality that's more fulfilling for everyone.
I think you might be onto something there.
Well, this conversation is definitely giving me a lot to think about. But before we get too deep into that, I think we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore how these ideas of anchor beings and NPCs intersect with another fascinating concept: main character syndrome. Stay tuned. Influence Decoders.
So, it's kind of funny how this all ties into something we see a lot these days.
What's that?
Main character syndrome. Where people act like they're the star of everyone's story.
Oh, yeah, main character syndrome. It's everywhere.
It is, and at first glance it seems kind of separate from the whole anchor being NPC thing, but I think they're actually connected.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about it. Main character syndrome is basically like a distorted version of the ensemble anchor idea.
Okay, I'm listening.
They both have that sense of importance, like you have a significant role to play, but instead of sharing that responsibility with others, like in the ensemble anchor, someone with main character syndrome makes it all about them.
So with the anchor being, it's the fate of the universe rests on my shoulders. But with main character syndrome, it's more like everyone's watching me because I'm the star.
Exactly. It's all about me, me, me.
Mm.
And that can obviously lead to some issues, especially in how we treat other people.
Yeah, because if you see yourself as the main character, everyone else is just a supporting player, right? Like their feelings and experiences don't really matter.
Exactly. And that can be really damaging to relationships.
It's like those TikTok trends where people film themselves doing everyday things like they're in a movie.
Oh, yeah, those are everywhere.
It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's still rooted in that idea that one person's experience is more important than everyone else's.
So you said there's some key differences between main character syndrome and actually being an anchor being. What are those?
Well, one big difference is scope anchor beings operate on like a cosmic level. Their existence literally affects the entire universe.
Right, so like saving reality from total destruction.
Exactly. But main character syndrome is much smaller scale, more about social dynamics and personal relationships.
So like more about who gets the best table at a restaurant.
Haha, yeah, something like that. Another difference is agency. An anchor being might not have chosen to be the one holding everything together. It's often like a destiny thing.
But with main character syndrome, people are actively choosing to act like they're the protagonist.
Right. It's self-imposed, even if it's subconscious.
And there's also that morality aspect. Being an anchor being isn't inherently good or bad. It just is. But main character syndrome is generally seen as a negative trait.
Absolutely. It's associated with selfishness and a lack of self-awareness.
So we've talked about the differences, but I'm curious about the potential dangers of both of these mindsets. What are those?
Well, the anchor being NPC binary can be used to justify some pretty messed up stuff. Like, imagine a leader who genuinely believes they're the only one who can save the world.
Yeah, they might feel like they can do whatever they want, even if it means hurting other people.
Exactly. It becomes really dangerous. And with main character syndrome, it can lead to a sense of entitlement and superiority that just creates conflict and drama.
So it's not all just fun and games after all.
No, it's important to recognize how these narratives can affect our behavior.
So how do we avoid falling into these traps? Like, how do we resist the allure of being the chosen one or the center of attention?
Honestly, I think awareness is the first step. Once you recognize these patterns, you can start to challenge them.
So like next time I'm watching a movie and the hero breaks all the rules because they're special, I should stop and think about if that's really a good message.
Exactly. Question those narratives. Ask yourself, is this how I want the world to work, where only a few people matter?
And what about main character syndrome? How do we combat that in our own lives?
It's all about empathy, remembering that everyone has their own story, their own struggles and triumphs.
It's about shifting that focus from me to we.
You got it. And that actually brings us to a really interesting philosophical idea that the source material touches on.
Lay it on me.
Absurdism.
Absurdism.
Yeah, it's this idea that the universe is inherently meaningless.
Wait, so what's the point of anything then?
Well, that's the thing. Instead of being depressed by this meaninglessness, absurdism encourages us to create our own NW meaning.
So even if we're just NPCs in the grand scheme of things, we can still choose to live our lives to the fullest.
Yeah. It's about finding joy and purpose in the face of that cosmic indifference.
It's like saying, hey, universe, you might not care, but I do.
Exactly. And that kind of defiant optimism can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I mean, define optimism. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like we're choosing to be the authors of our own stories, even if the universe hasn't given us a plot.
Right. And it goes back to what we were saying before about the ensemble anchor. Instead of worrying about whether we're the anchor being, maybe we should focus on what we're anchoring. What are the values and principles that are important to us?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not about individual achievement, but about collective responsibility.
Exactly. And when you think about it that way, that whole main character syndrome thing becomes even more ridiculous.
Because it's like saying, yeah, we're all in this together, but on the most important one.
Right. Like, that's not really helpful.
So, how do we cultivate that ensemble anchor approach? How do we actually shift from me to we in a way that's authentic?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that every single person has value. Every person has a story.
And we're all connected in ways we can't even fully understand?
Exactly. It's like that butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Even the smallest actions can have huge ripple effects.
So, even if someone seems insignificant, their actions could still have a major impact.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to treat everyone with respect and kindness. We never know how our actions might influence others.
It's like we're all part of this giant web of stories, each of us playing our own unique role.
And maybe by focusing on being good supporting characters for each other, lifting each other up, celebrating our shared humanities.
We can create something truly amazing.
I think so. And, it makes that whole question of anchor beings and NPCs a lot less scary.
Because even if we're not the chosen one, we can still make a difference.
Exactly. It's about finding meaning and purpose in our connections with others.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So, influence decoders, as we wrap up this deep dive into anchor beings, NPCs, main character syndrome, all that good stuff, we want to leave you with this.
What if instead of striving to be the main character, we focused on being the best supporting characters we can be?
What if we prioritized empathy, compassion, collaboration?
Because in the end, the most fulfilling stories, the most meaningful lives, are the ones that are lived in connection with others.
So go out there, be the best supporting characters you can be, lift each other up, champion each other's stories, and together, let's create a world where everyone has the chance to shine.
And as always, we want to hear your thoughts on this. Did any of these ideas resonate with you?
Have you ever felt like an NPC? Or witnessed some serious main character syndrome in action?
Share your stories, your questions, your insights in the comments below.
And don't forget to share, and follow us for more deep dives into the fascinating world of influence.
We're always on the lookout for new rabbit holes to explore, so let us know what other thought-provoking topics you'd like us to tackle.
Until next time, keep decoding those influences.